Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada हरिनाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते
वासुदेवाय
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
ततो जयमुदीरये
ततो जयमुदीरये
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
भगवते उत्तमश्लोके
भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
So we are reading from Canto 5, Chapter 13, Text 8, Shloka 8. Chalan kvachit kantaka sharkarangir Nagaru rukshur vimana ivaste Pade pade bhyantara vahani nardita Kautumbika krudayati vaijanaya Chalan kuchit kantaka sharkarangir Nagaru rukshur vimana ivaste Pade pade bhyantara vahani nardita Kautumbika krudyati vaijanaya Chalan kuchit kantaka sharkarangir Nagaru rukshur vimana ivaste Pade pade bhyantara vahaninatita Kautumbika krudyati vaijanaya
चलन क्वचित कंटर शर्करांगीर नगार रुक्षुर विमना इवास्ते पदे पदे व्यंतर भक्तिनार्दितः कौटुंबिका हृदयति वैजनाय
चलं क्वचित् कंटक शर्करांगीर नगारुरुक्षुर विमना इवास्ते पदे पदे व्यंतर वदिनार्दितः कौटुंबिकाः कृद्यति वैजनाय
चलन क्वचित कंटक शर्करांगीर
नगारुरुक्षुर विमना इवास्ते पदे पदे व्यंतर वदिनार्दितः कौटुंबिका कृद्यति वैजनाय.
Word to word meanings. Chalan, wandering. Kvachit, sometimes. Kantaka sharkara, pierced by thorns and small stones. Angari, whose feet. Naga, the hills. Aru rukshuhu, one desiring to climb. Vimana, disappointed. Iva, like. Aste, becomes. Pade pade, step by step. Abhyantara, within the abdomen. Vahanina, by the strong fire of appetite. Arditaha, being fatigued and aggrieved. Kautumbikaha, a person living with his family members. Krudyati, becomes angry, why, certainly, Janaya, at the family members. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes the merchant in the forest wants to climb the hills and mountains. But due to insufficient footwear, his feet are pricked by small stone fragments and by thorns on the mountain. Being pricked by them, he becomes very much aggrieved. Sometimes a person who is very attached to his family becomes overwhelmed with hunger, and due to his miserable condition, he becomes furious with his family members. Purport: the ambitious conditioned soul wants to be very happy in this material world with his family, but he is compared to a traveler in the forest who desires to climb a hill full of thorns and small stones. As stated in the previous verse, the happiness derived from society, friendship, and love is like a drop of water in the scorching heat of the desert. One may want to become very great and powerful in society, but this is like attempting to climb a hill full of thorns. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur compares one family to high mountains. Becoming happy in their association is like a hungry man's endeavor to climb a mountain full of thorns. Almost 99.9% of the population is unhappy in family life, despite all the attempts being made to satisfy the family members. In the Western countries, due to the dissatisfaction of the family members, there is actually no family life. There are many cases of divorce, and out of dissatisfaction, the children leave the protection of their parents. Especially in this age of Kali, the family life is being reduced. Everyone is becoming self-centered because that is the law of nature. Even if one has sufficient money to maintain a family, the situation is such that no one is happy in family life. Consequently, according to Varnashrama institution, one has to retire from family life in middle age. Pancha Shodvam Vanam Vrajet. One should voluntarily retire from family life at the age of 50 and go to Vrindavan or a forest. This is recommended by Srila Prahlad Maharaj. Tat sadhu manne suravarya dehinam sada samadvigna diham asadgrahat hitvatmapatam grahamandakupam vanam gato yad dharimashrayata. There is no benefit in transferring from one forest to another. One must go to the Vrindavan forest and take shelter of Govinda. That will make one happy. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is therefore constructing a Krishna Balram temple to invite its members as well as outsiders to come and live peacefully in a spiritual atmosphere. That will help one become elevated to the transcendental world and return home back to Godhead. Another sentence in this verse is very significant. Kautumbika krudyati vai janaya. When one's mind is disturbed in so many ways, he satisfies himself by becoming angry with his poor wife and children. The wife and children are naturally dependent on the father, but the father, being unable to maintain the family properly, becomes mentally distressed and therefore chastises the family members unnecessarily. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Achinna Dara Dravina Yasyanti Giri Kananam. Being disgusted with family life, one separates from the family by divorce or some other means. If one has to separate, why not separate willingly? Systematic separation is better than forced separation. Forced separation cannot make anyone happy, but by mutual consent or by the Vedic arrangement, one must separate from his family affairs at a certain age and fully depend on Krishna. This makes one's life successful. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Namo Mahabadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Pramne Gaur Tushe Namah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpataro Besha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatam ham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be continuing our discussion on this topic, the conversation between Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahugana. And these verses are very, very important, as we previously also discussed. How all these verses, they point out to basically to the futility of material existence. That how all the activities that are done by everyone in this world, everyone is endeavoring for happiness, everyone is trying to get some happiness. And here it's mentioned that how people take so much trouble to get that happiness. Different analogies, different examples are given, just to explain how a conditioned soul tries in so many ways to get that happiness. And in the previous verse, we discussed that how that so-called happiness is compared to a Gandharvapura, or a castle or city in the forest, basically which does not exist, an imaginary thing. So happiness in this world, or endeavoring for happiness in this world, that is imaginary, or that you won't be able to ever get that. And that's what these verses are clearly explaining. So one of the nice examples in the previous verse that was given of a traveler. Here also one example of a traveler is given. In the previous verse also that example was given, like a traveler is there who is wandering alone in the different places, who is going to forest, and then he is going to a desert. And then he is very, very thirsty. He is searching for water, and then he gets a drop of water somewhere. And definitely that drop of water, it is of value, definitely it's water, but that won't quench his thirst, or that won't suffice for that particular purpose. And the example, the understanding is, similarly the person looking for happiness in this world, he wants, if someone is asked the basic question, how much happiness we want? No one will say this much. People will say unlimited happiness. We don't want an end to that happiness. And if other way around the question is asked, okay, how much distress you want in this world? So people will say, no one will say this much. People will say zero. We don't want any distress in this world. We want only happiness in this world. But then the endeavor is like a traveler in the forest. He's searching for that happiness, but what he gets? Drop of water, which doesn't satisfy him. Similarly, all our endeavors for happiness in this world, whatever activities we do, either to get rid of distress or to get happiness, they will end up in failure, because we cannot get happiness in this world. So in the previous verse, nicely this verse was quoted from Vidyapati. Tatale sakete vari bindu sama sutamita ramani samaje. He says that the happiness of people in this world, that whatever people who are engaged in different activities, engaged in family life, engaged with friends, engaged with society, and whatever they are thinking or whatever they are expecting, that they are getting happiness out of it. So that is compared to the same thing, drop of water in the scorching desert, basically, which may give us some idea, some illusory happiness for some time being, but which cannot satisfy us. Or that drop cannot satisfy a traveler who is thirsty. He needs gallons of water. He needs huge amount of water to satisfy his thirst. But that little won't satisfy him. That little water won't satisfy him. So here it's mentioned that a merchant in the forest, wants to climb the hills and mountains. Basically what it means is, this is an analogical explanation. It actually means that a person in this world, he desires fame. He wants to be famous. In different ways, it's given in the commentary by Acharyas. It says that he wants to be famous by getting his sons and daughters married in a very, very pompous way, in a very, very elaborate way, so that he becomes famous. People respect him. And that's what we see people in this world, they try to do, they collect a lot, they save a lot just for that particular day, that when that day will come when our daughters or sons will get married in a very, very elaborate, grand, in a very pompous way. And that's what he says, the merchant in the forest, sometimes the merchant in the forest wants to climb the hills and mountains. Similarly, a person desires to be very famous, respected by doing this, by doing a pompous arrangement. But what happens next? Like thinking about that, he becomes an anxiety. He is always depressed, thinking, how will I achieve this goal, or how will I accomplish that goal? Because constantly he's thinking that I want to do that, that will happen a lot later, but the entire life he spends in anxiety, always thinking how I can get that, how I can get that. And then it's written, but due to insufficient footwear, his feet are pricked by small stone fragments and by thorns on the mountain. What it means by this insufficient footwear is that he is trying, he is endeavoring for this thing. He is endeavoring to get that happiness, he is endeavoring to get wealth for arranging these different activities, but he has no support. Or he becomes defeated in his endeavors because of so many obstacles that are there. Neither he has proper assistance from anyone around, he is not assisted, and so many obstacles he faces. And that is what people who try to possess a lot of money, people who try to get wealth, there are so many obstacles. In the previous verse, we discussed that how Prabhupada writes, the wealth is plundered. Even if a person accumulates a lot of wealth by any means, even if he saves it, that gets plundered in one day. We see recently how this Rameshwaram cafe, that how they were running so nicely, doing it so nicely, and they were earning a lot. But then one day, one blast, and the shop was sealed. And now shop may start after some time, but we never know it will again get that popularity or not. So similarly, a person is trying so much to get accumulate so much money, so much wealth, so that he can do things in an elaborate way, grand way, so that he can become happy or he can get famous. But that, as Prabhupada mentioned, that anytime, even if a person gets that, everything will be plundered away. He gives the example of businessmen, that one day he has seen, Prabhupada gives his own example, that he has seen many businessmen, in one day they become paupers, or they lose everything they have. That's what he's saying, that no matter how much we try, the struggle for existence will always be there. Or person can never become successful. So I was hearing this person, the owner of Rameshwaram Cafe, when he was asked that, what do you want to say about this incident? So he said that, he called his shop as like my baby. So what he said is, my baby will bounce back. Basically, this is what I could connect with what Prabhupada wrote in the previous verse purport. That how these people, even though they end up in failure, or whatever their attempts are end up in failure, yet the nature of material existence is such that such foolish people are attracted to these transactions and they forget the real business of self-realization. So point I'm trying to make is same thing, that even after so many troubles happen, even after so many obstacles come, but still they think they can be successful, or still they are that again I'll try. Just like that example of Puna Puna Charvita Charvanam, that example of sugarcane is given. That already it has been crushed and there is no juice left. But still people think that, okay, if I take from this side, I'll get some juice. If I take from opposite side, I'll get some juice. Again and again. But that juice is anyways, it's crushed and there is no juice left in it. Similar is the attempt of people here. Even after so many obstacles, they don't understand that this place or this struggle for existence will never end. Because Maya Devi will constantly keep doing her job. She has three kleshas, Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik and Adi Devik. And it will keep on giving some or the other. Like Adi Bhautik klesha from envious people, who will attack the property, who will plunder the riches. Adi Devik klesha from the natural causes, some natural disturbance, some earthquake comes and everything shattered again to pieces. Or Adhyatmik klesha within the body and mind. Maybe some health issues, some other issues within the mind, and the person becomes disturbed. But even after all this, the person thinks, no, he can be successful. So this is what the same thing continues in this verse also. That ambition conditioned soul wants to be very happy in this material world, but he is compared to a traveler in the forest who desires to climb a hill full of thorns and small stones. Basically, he's trying to climb for happiness. He's doing all the things in this world to get some happiness. As stated in the previous verse, the happiness derived from society, friendship and love is like a drop of water in the scorching heat of the desert, as we already discussed. One may want to become very great and powerful in society, but this is like attempting to climb a hill full of thorns. So whatever we try, ultimately there will be many, many obstacles. And our feet, as in this example, if we try to climb a hill full of thorns, automatically our feet will get pierced. Or there will be so many wounds, or so many injuries will suffer, or so many problems we'll face in that endeavor. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur compares one's family to high mountains. Becoming happy in their association is like a hungry man's endeavoring to climb a mountain full of thorn. Again, hungry man, basically a helpless man who has no energy in his body, yet he's trying to climb that mountain thinking that he can get some happiness. Almost 99% of the population is unhappy in family life, despite all the attempts being made to satisfy the family members. So this we all know, and that's why we are here, not having a family. So because this everyone has experienced already, that how people try so many endeavors, how we have seen in our family so many endeavors made by different relatives, different family members to satisfy each around, satisfy the children, satisfy the wife, satisfy the husband. But then no one becomes happy. Everyone is ultimately dissatisfied. And this is actually a fact which Prabhupada writes, that 99.9% of the population is unhappy in family life. No one can be happy. That's a fact. In the Western countries, due to the dissatisfaction of the family members, there is actually no family life. So this he wrote in the 70s, that how there were many cases of divorces or people leaving each other, living separately, living independently. And then Prabhupada commonly gives that example. Then person has no one to serve, but then tendency to serve is always there. So then they keep a dog. And then they are taking the dog for a walk and all, waiting for him to pass stool and urine, and spending so much time. And sometimes it becomes difficult to understand who is the master, the dog or the person. So that's what it's mentioned here, that there are many cases of divorce out of dissatisfaction. Children leave the protection of the parents, or the husband and wife leave each other. And that's what even now we see, even in India it has become prevalent. Even in India all this has started. Joint families have become nuclear families, and that also has become difficult to sustain. People don't want to live with each other. Everyone wants to live separately. Even husband and wife, I've seen, wife is living somewhere and husband wants to live somewhere else, or his job is somewhere else. So that's what we see here. Especially in this age of Kali, family life is being reduced. Basically, everyone wants to live independently. Everyone wants to live alone or separate. And everyone is being self-centered because that is the law of nature. Everyone is looking for the satisfaction of his own senses. That's the reason we are here in this material world. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ichcha Dvesha Samuthena Sarge Anti Parantapa. That we are basically, because of Ichcha, that is the desire to enjoy separately from the Lord, and the Dvesha, the enviousness towards the Lord, that why should only He be served? Why not we should? We should also become the Lord, we should also be served. And that is the reason we come in this material world. We come in this existence because we are self-centered. So clearly Prabhupada mentioned that everyone is becoming self-centered because that is the law of nature. And I was hearing today morning only in one lecture, so one person, a newcomer, was asking one senior devotee, one senior sannyasi, that why are we here in this material world? Or what is the reason we came to this material world? And it seems after multiple explanations that he was, because of our enviousness, because of our desire to enjoy separately, the person was not convinced. That I don't get convinced that still why are we here? Why did we leave the spiritual world? And the simple answer, simple analogy that was given is like, let's say a person is drowning in the ocean. A person is drowning and a boatman comes and sends a rope to him or throws a rope so that he can catch it. Now that time he won't say that, okay, first tell me why I am here or who put me here. First thing he'll do is catch the rope and climb up the boat or climb up the ship, and then he can find out that what was the reason he came down. Similarly, when this is asked that why we are here in this material world, the simple answer is that because we desired to enjoy separately, because we were self-centered, that's the reason we are here. But still, if person is not convinced, the same thing. Okay, you first make an endeavor to get out. Because right now you are deceased, and only important thing for you to do is how to take care or how to get rid of the disease. Once you are rid of it, then you can easily find out that why you came here, what was the reason you came here. But why to so much spend your time in thinking about that? Rather thinking about the thing, how we can get out of this world, or how a person, like Prabhupada gives the example of malaria. A person has malaria, the important thing is thinking how I can get rid of it or how I can get cured from it. Not just finding out the investigation, which mosquito bit me, where was that mosquito, I want to find and kill that mosquito or whatever. That makes no sense. So that is the thing, especially everyone is becoming self-centered. Even if one has sufficient money to maintain a family, the situation is such that no one is happy in family life. We already discussed that no one can be happy. Money is there, so many facilities are there, but still a person is not happy. Consequently, according to the Varnashrama system institution, one has to retire from family life in middle age. Pancha Shordhvam Vanam Rajet. One should voluntarily retire from family life at the age of 50 and go to Vrindavan or a forest. So Prabhupada is mentioning that that's why this recommendation, that's why the Varnashram system was established. As Krishna says that he was the one who himself comes and established this Varnashram system, and that's why it becomes very, very important. Because a person can never be happy by all these materialistic endeavors. A person has to retire and engage in full-time devotional service. That is very, very important. And that is what when Hiranyakashipu asked his son Prahlad Maharaj, what is the best thing you have learned? He says the same thing, this very famous shloka, Tat sadhu manya suravare dehinam sada samudvigna dihan asadgrahat. So he's saying the same thing. People in this world are always full of anxiety. And why they are in anxiety? Because they have accepted this temporary body, because they have accepted this temporary body to be permanent and thinking that we can get happiness in this world. And now what is the way to get out of this anxiety? So he says, Hitvatma patam graham andakupam, that this family life is like a dark well, and vanam gatoyad dharim. Basically, go to the forest, or we should leave family life at once and retire for the forest, or engage in full-time devotional service. And that's what is mentioned here. And Prabhupada explains that there is no benefit in transferring from one forest to another. That someone takes this literally, okay, now I'll go to some forest. So actually in Kali Yuga, there are no forests, we understand, where we can practice all these things. So he gives that one must go to Vrindavan forest and take shelter of Govinda. And then again he becomes more specific. That in Vrindavan, one must go to International Society of Krishna Consciousness. We are establishing this Krishna Balaram temple to invite all the members of the society, outsiders, everyone. So that people who are frustrated with all this, they can come and they can get an atmosphere, they can get a congenial place, an ambience where they can practice devotional service. Or where they can nicely engage in devotional service in a congenial atmosphere. That is what the ISKCON centers, the reason for establishing ISKCON centers. That will help one become elevated through the transcendental world and return home back to Godhead. And that is how a person can actually get out of this cycle of birth and death, or get out of these modes of nature and finally go back home, back to Godhead. And once a person goes back there is no return. As Krishna says, Yad Gatvana Nivartante, Tad Dhama Paramam Mama. That one who goes there, then there is no return, there is no coming back. Another sentence in this verse is very significant. When one's mind is disturbed in so many ways, he satisfies himself by becoming angry with his poor and children. So basically we see person is trying so much to get so many wealth, to accumulate so many riches, accumulate so many different items so that he can be happy, he can be satisfied. And as previously explained, he doesn't get any help in that. No one is his associate, no one helps him in that endeavor. And finally, facing so many obstacles, he becomes dejected, or he becomes completely frustrated. And that's what Prabhupada explains. Now, when he is disturbed in so many ways, he cannot express that disturbance outside. Outside he is fearful that if he expresses disturbance in his office or with his colleagues, then there will be problem. So that's what it is. He satisfies himself by becoming angry with his poor wife and children. He takes out that anger, he takes out all that frustration at his home on his poor wife and children. And then wife and children are naturally dependent on the father. But the father, being unable to maintain the family properly, becomes mentally distressed and therefore chastises the family members unnecessarily. Even if there is no reason, even if everything is okay, because he is so much disturbed in his endeavors, he is so much mentally in mental agony, and that's why he takes out that disturbance on his poor wife and children. And Prabhupada explains that in the Vedic society, the wife and children were dependent on the father or dependent on the husband. And if he doesn't take care of them, they also are left with no shelter. And that's why it's stated in Srimad Bhagavatam Being disgusted with family life, one separates from the family by divorce or some other means. And finally, when there are so much trouble, so much kleshas in the family, so much fight in the family, finally the person separates. And here Prabhupada writes a very interesting thing, very nice thing, that anyways the person has to separate, then why not willingly? So he says systematic separation is better than forced separation. Anyways, person will be frustrated, person will be forced to separate. So why not systematically follow the Varnashram system and at the correct time take to the renounced order or leave based on mutual consent. That's what Prabhupada says. By the mutual consent, by the Vedic arrangement, one must separate from his family affairs at a certain age. And that way a person can be, when he voluntarily takes the decision, he can actually be happy, engaged in the devotional service. If he is forced to get separated, by the laws of nature, if he gets separated, a person cannot become happy because that is a forced separation that is there. And this makes one's life successful. And this is how a person can be successful in his life. We see one more example in the case of Prajapati Daksha. So in the 6th canto, we see the pastime of Prajapati Daksha, that how he was given the job by Brahma to beget children, to beget progeny, to populate this world. And then he engaged in austerities, he engaged in long austerities, and he pleased the Supreme Lord, he pleased Lord Vishnu. There is a set of prayers, Hamsa Guhya prayers. So he pleases Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu appears before him in a 8-handed form. And there he gives him a material benediction. Lord Vishnu gives him a benediction, he gives him a wife so that he can nicely beget progeny, or he can nicely populate the entire world. So even in that pastime we see, when Daksha, he united with his wife, his wife's name was Asikni. When he unites with his wife and he begets the 10,000 sons, they were the Haryashavas. And then he asked them that now it's your duty to beget children or to populate this entire universe. And these sons, it's described, they were very obedient to their father. They were very obedient, they used to follow their father, and they were very religious, very nice sons that were there. And immediately when the order was given by the father, so what they did? They didn't engage in sex life. They went to the place for practicing austerities. Or there's a place called as Narayana Saras. They went there for practicing austerities so that they can execute the order of their father. They can make him happy basically. So now we know all the pastime, that how they went there, they started executing austerities. And there is described that by practicing those austerities, by bathing in the holy river, they got sufficiently purified. Or they were actually near the Paramhamsa level, they got sufficiently purified to the level of Paramhamsa, or they also developed their renunciation within them. Yet because it was the instruction of their father, Prajapati Daksha, that they had to beget children, so they continued engaging in austerity. But now something happens, that when they were sufficiently purified, and as we say that we are also searching for ripe souls. And when we see someone is a ripe soul, someone is a perfect candidate, the preachers immediately target that person, or preachers immediately start preaching to that person. And here also something like that happens. Narad Muni comes to that place where these sons, Haryashavas, were engaged in practicing austerities. And Narad Muni comes there, and Narad Muni asked a very nice question. Narad Muni says that why should they follow their father's order to be entangled in this family life? And why to neglect the Supreme Father's order? So actually Narad Muni gives them a very set of instructions which was very enigmatic. Enigmatic means not very easy to understand. But then these people, as it's given in the verse, they were sufficiently purified. So they could able to understand what Narad Muni is trying to say. And that's why he actually says that Narad Muni tells them that you don't understand what's the actual instruction of your father. You're following the instruction of your father thinking that this is the instruction, but this is not the actual instruction. Actual instruction of the Supreme Father is something else. And that is to engage in devotional service. That is the purpose of your father. The purpose of your father is not to create progeny. Basically, the purpose of your Supreme Father is not that you create progeny and get entangled in this world. And then these people, they were able to understand Narad Muni's instruction. They were able to understand all those instructions that he gave. And as we know, after that, they quit it. They quit that place and they renounced that place and they renounced ashram, or they went in engaging full-time devotional service. So why I was telling that pastime here? Because there also, when the Narad Muni comes back, so this is one pastime, then again this Daksha tolerates this. Again, he begets 1,000 children. Again, they went for practicing austerities, and again, Narad Muni comes, preaches to them. Again, they leave. And Narad Muni just tells them one line. He tells that you are so obedient, you should follow in the footsteps of your brother. They were also so nice, they also followed, so you should also follow in their footsteps. And those people also understood, he's telling the correct thing. Because they were also sufficiently purified, they also followed in the footsteps of their brothers, and they also left. And after that, Daksha became very, very angry. He couldn't tolerate any further. And now Narad Muni was on a different mood. Narad Muni thought that now I have delivered the sons, and now I have delivered the father as well. And see, he comes to Daksha with a mood that now I'll deliver him. But Daksha, as we see, as we have heard in the previous pastimes also, this is the nature of offenses that were there. Because he had committed offenses in the past to Lord Shiva, he still had those traces. And he couldn't understand Narad Muni's mood. So Narad Muni comes there, and Daksha is so angry, he immediately blasphemes Narad Muni. He starts chastising Narad Muni. That you are in the dress of a sadhu, but you are not a sadhu, you are a sadhu. And Prabhupada also writes in that Daksha says you are a rascal. You don't know what needs to be done, what is the right time and what is not the right time. And there Daksha says this very important statement that you have asked them to execute the renounced order, go in the renounced order in an untimely way. Daksha gives another philosophy. Daksha says that you should have let them get entangled in family life. And once they get entangled in family life, once they suffer in family life, and then with time, with knowledge and renunciation, they will realize that family life is troublesome, and then they'll give it up. This is how you should have allowed them. This is what generally people also say, that you first go through family life, first go through that phase, and then with knowledge, when detachment will come, when you'll realize that this is not a place of happiness, then you take to the renounced order. But as we know, this philosophy never works. No one has ever been able to, even after, it's like saying that lust can ever be finished by fulfilling it. Or the example of itching is given. When itching is happening and we itch more and more, we can never be satisfied. That will never happen. Rather, the more we itch, the more it will start bleeding. Similarly, when Daksha says that, there Prabhupada explains this point that even though Narad Muni had given them the highest instructions, they were actually ready to execute the highest instruction. Narad Muni knew that these people were on that highest platform, or they were sufficiently purified. Because they have practiced austerities, because they were practicing austerities in that holy liver, they were sufficiently purified, and it was not or in Hindi or in Sanskrit that term is given, Falgyu Vairagya. Or it was not a temporary renunciation. It was not a renunciation out of some sentiments or emotions, but it was a renunciation full of knowledge. And that's the same thing here. It's good that here Prabhupada says systematic separation is better than forced separation. This is a systematic separation. What is systematic separation? By giving the person knowledge, two things, Gyan and Vairagya. When a person is given knowledge and when a person practices austerities, automatically detachment comes. And that's when a person can actually separate from the family life, or that's when a person can properly, in the Varnashram system, separate from the family life. And this is what even Narad Muni did to those people, did to the sons of Daksha 2 times. He gave them the knowledge, and he also, when the knowledge was given, it's also given that they were sufficiently enlightened. They were not a temporary renunciation out of sentiment that later they realized, oh, they made a mistake or something like that. But that was a permanent, that was actually a renunciation full of enlightenment. But of course, Daksha, because of his sins, because of the nature of the sins, he was not able to understand that. And Daksha cursed Narad Muni that you won't be able to stay in one single place for a long time. And there Prabhupada explains another very nice point, that how the nature of the devotee. If Narad Muni wanted that time, he could have cursed him back. He could have also cursed him, given him a curse or countered the curse with some way. But the nature of the devotee is he happily accepted the curse. He said, so be it. Or let it be, let the curse come upon me. And that curse, as we all know, served as a benediction that he always go in different places, always traveling and always preaching to different people around. And Prabhupada writes that the same curse has been given to me by the parents of people who have joined the Krishna consciousness movement. And that's why even after having so many facilities in different places, wherever I go, I have so many nice facilities, so many places are given, but still I cannot stay at one place for a long time. This is because when the preaching was going on, when people join the temple or when people join full time, their parents become very, very upset. And their parents curse the people. Their parents curse the devotees that these people have brainwashed us in so many things. And Prabhupada, right? I have accepted that curse, and that's why I keep on traveling and preaching to all these people, preaching to different places. And Prabhupada explains that should be the nature of the devotees. No matter whenever someone curses us, we should just tolerate instead of reacting to it, because we understand that those they don't understand all these things, they won't able to understand. At the same, we should just tolerate it and keep on continuing with these activities. Because preaching will always be a risky business, and Prabhupada writes it will always be a thankless task. Even if no one appreciates, we have to do this for the service, for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. And there Prabhupada also writes one more interesting point that now, of course, I am traveling throughout, but now I want this curse to be taken over by my disciples so that I can sit and translate the Srimad Bhagavatam. And my sannyasi disciples, they go around the world and they start preaching this message. And that's what now becomes our job, that we also take up. We also start preaching and take up that service that Prabhupada wanted, so that the senior devotees or the sannyasis, they can engage in the higher purposes or the different activities, different higher services that are there, they can execute those. So this is what this is what this purport explains entirely about how the futility of material happiness, that there is no happiness in this material world, and all our endeavors for happiness, even though a person keeps on trying, there'll be so many obstacles, there won't be any assistance, and finally the person will get frustrated, and that frustration will come out at his own wife and children, ultimately ending up in the separation of the family life, or ultimately ending up in divorce. And that's why Prabhupada says better to take it voluntarily, or better to get separated voluntarily according to the varnashram system, rather than being forced to get separated. So with this, I would like to pause here. Any questions or willing?
Daksha, when he says that you are untimely, you are doing wrong. So Prabhupada says that, yeah, you forget to. It will not happen. They will get entangled. But Prabhupada also says that systematically getting wrong. Why not Daksha telling him that? Like, is that not the mood of Daksha?
That systematically getting up. So in this, Prabhupada explained systematic separation is better for someone, if someone is forced to separate. Better than them, they follow the varnashram system, they follow the family life, and they, with time at 50, they get separated. But then in that case, as Prabhupada in the previous purports, he mentioned that those people were sufficiently purified. Because they were obedient to their father, they were very obedient, they were practicing austerities and taking bath in the river. They were sufficiently purified, they already had developed that nature of renunciation. But still, because it was the order of their father, they were practicing austerities. And Narad Muni understood that these people are meant for the higher stage. They can, at that time, they were fit for the highest ashram. So Prabhupada writes there that what Daksha was saying was also a correct point, that a person who is not ready for renunciation should not be promoted for that, or he should not be forced for that. But in this case, he was wrong, because his sons were enlightened by Narad Muni. They were given the knowledge and then they were asked to renounce. Right?
Actually, they are already in the level of performance.
Yeah, correct. Anything else? Okay, reflection.
Thank you very much for a nice class and a short notice. So you mentioned the reasons why a living entity comes into this material world. Icha, Dvesha, that is desire to enjoy, separate from the Lord, and enviousness towards the Lord. So because of this, we come here and the living entities try their best to be happy here, but it's not at all possible. So just like a hungry man trying to climb up the thorny mountain, it's very difficult. So Prabhupada compares that with the family life also. So all these verses and the lectures helps to get rid of the desire of getting married. In a future in brahmachari life may come, but I have to reconcile and go to these verses again and again, so that we not enter in this life and practice this Krishna consciousness in the brahmachari life only, and be happy. And very nicely mentioned how ISKCON is a place for all the renunciants, or even after marriage, those who come, just like a forest. previously there were forests, now there are no forests, only ISKCON temples are there where we can come and practice bhakti nicely. And the last point which you mentioned is very nice, that preaching is risky, but we have to do for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Fuji. It was a very nice class. So you were mentioning that how in this material world they try again and again, even after repeated failures, and even though everybody are facing so many miseries, still they are like never give up. So you explained that okay, there's no use in trying again and again in this material world. So there is no happiness here. We want full happiness and no distress, but here there is only distress and no happiness. So we have to practice devotional service. And also you were mentioning like why we came here. So generally to enjoy separate, and we became envious of the Lord. But our first business should be like first to get out of this ocean. Then we can think of why we came, if at all we are not convinced. Hare Krishna.
So you mentioned, Prabhuji, that in a forest, a man want to climb the mountains like that. He is trying to get happiness by materially, and you told that money saved will get be like in future it will get plundered, and the law of nature is everyone is self-centered, and because the desire to enjoy separately, so we are here, and you gave the example of fever and mosquito biting. So we cannot search that mosquito from how I got the fever, and the last cannot be satisfied. And you gave the example as itching sensation leads to bleeding only. And by Jnana and Vairagya, one can separate from family life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhu. So you told like people are searching for happiness. So somehow or other they are struggling in this material worlds and fully suffering. So how they should come to like Krishna consciousness, then only they will get the happiness. And you told like a very nice point, like people are want to not to entangle in that renounced order initial stage. Even if those boys are coming in the youth, they are planning to go to this material worlds, first entangle, then only come out. But it's very difficult task. That's points if you highlight in these alignments, it will be very nice. So better to come and join. And you told also very nice point like course, like so many aspects in our Bhagavad Gita also, even if Narada Muni sometimes also calls to Nalkuber also, so how they get the benefits. So sometimes also cause will create the benefits towards the devotee. Somehow or other it should taking as a positive way, not in the negative way.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for a nice class. We saw from the example of Narada and Prajapati Daksha that what is the nature of devotees, that they tolerate that even though he was cursed, he did not curse back or counteracted the curse, but he just tolerated and saw it as mercy only. And Prabhupada also explained that he is also going through the same things, that he is also been cursed by the parents of the devotees who had joined full time, and even though so many facilities are there, still he is not like, he does not stay at one place for a time, and he goes on preaching and preaching. So we should also try to imbibe this quality of tolerance within us, especially in the association of devotees, not to get agitated quickly and reply back in harsh words. Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna.